What's going on, guys? My name's Dark Populous and welcome to Tol Barad. So what is Tol Barad? Well, Tol Barad is a 80 versus 80 PvP battleground. That's right, two groups of 80 players fight for control over the Tol Barad battleground. The goal of Tol Barad is to control 3 flag points on the map. These 3 flag points are called Ironclad Garrison, or ICG for short, Slagworks, and Warden's Vigil. Warden's Vigil being the most hardest to capture, but I'll go into more detail as to why that is in a few. Each Tol Barad can last for up to 30 minutes. However, the offensive team can extend the time by destroying towers located in the corners of the map. Each tower destroyed grants the offensive team 5 more minutes to attack the enemy team's flag points. The defensive team must hold at least 1 flag point until the timer runs out. If the offensive team manages to hold 3 flag points, then they instantly win the battleground. In order to capture a flag point on Tol Barad, the offensive faction must be within proximity of the flag, and the offensive team must have more players in that proximity than the defending team does. If the defensive team has more players than the offensive team within range of the flag, then the offensive team will not be able to capture that flag until they have more players than the defensive team does. However, the offensive team can also wipe out the defensive team trying to defend that flag, or they can reduce their numbers to the point where they have enough players to capture that flag. If you've played Conquest mode on Battlefield, then you'll know exactly what this is like. Another example would be Domination on Call of Duty. Tol Barad, or TB, opens every 2 hours. If you want to know how much time is left until the next Tol Barad, then open up your Honor tab or press the H key. If TB is currently open, then it will say in progress instead of having a timer until the next battle. So why should you queue up for Tol Barad? Tol Barad rewards a lot of honor, especially if you're victorious. They also reward Tol Barad commendations, which you can use to purchase pets, mounts, and all sorts of other little goodies rewarded by the vendors in there. It's also good practice for the new World PvP that will be introduced in Warlords of Draenor. And lastly, because 80 versus 80 players is a large scale type of battle, and it can be extremely exciting. What's the best tactic for defense on Tol Barad? Well, the most effective tactic would be to turtle Warden's Vigil. And earlier I mentioned that Warden's Vigil was the hardest flag to capture. There's a few reasons as to why this is the case. There are narrow choke points that the offensive team must go through in order to get to the flag, such as the staircases. It's an easy area for the enemy team to be ambushed, and you can use that to your advantage by placing down AoE abilities on the staircases, so that they have to take damage while they're coming up. Most of the time, whenever the offensive team is climbing these stairs, their healers will be out of line of sight of their teammates, because all of these slows and AoE abilities will most likely scare them into staying downstairs. And then there's also the fact that the barriers, just as you get to the top of the staircase, can also make it so the healers can't see their targets. And whenever they have to move within range to get to those targets, then the healers are going to take heavy damage. Another great thing about defending Warden's Vigil is the fact that you could knock enemy targets off the edges. Unfortunately, this can also work for the offensive team's advantage. Another thing that the defensive team should know is that there is a rear staircase to Warden's Vigil. However, whenever the enemy team does go up these staircases, they're not going to be able to help the people coming up the front. If you see the offensive team moving their entire force towards the rear of Warden's Vigil, then the best counter for that would be to move your entire force from the front of Warden's Vigil to the back staircase, so that you can use the staircase's narrow choke point to stop them there, just like you would at the front. However, if the offensive team manages to get up those stairs and run straight into your force without you even noticing, that can be really devastating, so you want to avoid that as much as possible. Another note for the defensive team is if you see a siege engine at Warden's Vigil, while normally it would be a good idea to destroy these siege engines, having them move up to Warden's Vigil and monk around is actually more beneficial to the defensive team, because they're not serving their purpose. They'll most likely be destroyed by AoE damage anyway, so it's best to just ignore them and focus on enemy players instead. So what should you do if you're on the offensive team? Well, taking the other two flag points aren't much of a problem, especially seeing as the defensive team can only really defend one flag point really well. If they try to defend Slags or Ironclad Garrison, they're probably going to get overrun really quickly, because there's no narrow choke point, and there's also multiple flanks on both the flags that the offensive team can use to overrun the enemy. So the only real threat for the offensive team is Warden's Vigil. So how do you get the defensive team to go off Warden's Vigil? Well, the best way to do that is to make the ground beneath them inaccessible. That means placing down AoE abilities or Ring of Frost, or anything to make them move away from that position to make it your own. Successfully managing to pull off this tactic will cause the people on defense to have a lot of problems, such as players being line of sighted from their own team. This will make them easy prey. Another issue would be lack of DPS on the correct targets. If everyone's scattered away from each other, they all won't be able to see the same target, and if any target is called by the raid leader, then none of those players are going to be able to attack that target. And the last issue would be extreme stress on the healers. With everyone scattered around, being line of sighted, taking too much damage in different locations, the healers won't be able to keep everyone alive, and it will force them to use major cooldowns, which will make them even easier to kill. A really important tool to the attacking team is the siege engines. The purpose of these siege engines are to take down the towers at the corners of the map. Each tower destroyed grants 5 minutes to the attacking team. That's 5 minutes more each tower that you can use to attack the enemy's flag points. In order to use a siege engine, you must be able to mount it, and to mount it you simply right click on it. Once you've managed to do this, you'll be able to drive the siege engine towards one of the towers. Once you are within range of a tower, you will be able to deploy it. There will be a skill bar at the bottom of your screen when you enter the siege engine. The deploy icon will look like a bomb. Once you initiate the deployment sequence, it will take a few seconds to set in motion. Once it has been successfully done, you will be automatically ejected from the vehicle. The siege engine will automatically begin to fire upon the tower within range. It will do this until either the vehicle is destroyed or the tower is taken down. There are multiple siege engines on the map that can do this at once, so you'll want to dedicate a few players to setting up these siege engines at the beginning of every Tol Barad. Leaving it till later could cause you to lose, because you may not have enough time for the siege engines to take down those towers. Alrighty guys, that brings us to the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I also hope you guys learned a lot from this video. And if you did, please take the time to subscribe to my channel, which is youtube.com/darkpopulous, or you can subscribe to the main Ruin channel, which is youtube.com/ruin. And with that, I'll see you guys in the next video. Roll out!